Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff on this Thursday. Big story. Anthony Davis looked like he got a concussion last night. I mean, he was definitely woozy, Perloff. He definitely needed a wheelchair, as was reported, to help him into the locker room after Kevon Looney inadvertently hit him in the head with about 7.5 minutes left to go in the third quarter of the Warriors-Lakers game last night. We turned to Chris Nowinski, the CEO, the founder of Concussion Legacy Foundation, and a good friend of the show. And Chris, thanks so much for the time today. How are you?
Good, Maggie. Great to connect on that.
Oh, no. Thanks so much for doing it, Chris. I appreciate it because, you know, we always love your expertise on stuff like this. And I know you've seen the Anthony Davis play. Chris Haynes of TNT and Bleacher Report is now reporting that the early diagnosis indicates that Anthony Davis appears to have avoided a concussion and is doing much better now. You see that and read that and think what?
A little voice in my head is saying words that I can't say on your radio show. This is the playoffs, and so we see time and time again people skirting science and medicine. And when a player, pulls himself out of a game after a blow to the head, you see him on the sideline explaining to the athletic trainer that he's got visual issues, he can't see straight, and then they need a wheelchair because they don't trust him to be able to walk on his own because he's either dizzy or can't see. If that all happens after a hit to the head, like 99.999% of the time, that's a concussion. There can be a rare, other cause of transient visual disturbance if that's the only symptom. But after a blow to the temple, I don't think it's reasonable to say he did not have a concussion.
Chris, are you surprised that the Lakers are trying to say that? In this, if it was the NFL, I think we're all more on top of it. The NBA, we don't talk about this topic as much. But are you surprised the Lakers are sort of downplaying that as much as they are?
No, nothing. I mean, if the Dolphins did it, I'm not surprised to see the Lakers do it. I mean, the reason why they can get away with it is there isn't the same education in the media community, and it's not perceived as the same risk because we don't have CT cases in NBA players, even though they may not be related. Concussions and CT are not related in one-to-one. But so I think they're just trying to get away with it, and they will try to get away with it until people call them out. And so I'm calling them out, and I will continue to call them out on social media. And I just I think it sends a terrible message to every youth basketball player in the country to say that wasn't a concussion. All right, that was a concussion. And now that they're already saying he's probably going to play in Game 6 unless there's a setback, now he's under huge pressure that if he has a headache tomorrow, and that's a sign that they definitely had a concussion, that he's going to lie about it and keep playing. And then, honestly, I'm actually worried. So are we going to see another Tua situation, right? If Anthony Davis takes another blow to the head, right, he's with 2 in 3 days or 4 days, he'll be more likely to be knocked out. And a man who's 6'10" falling onto a hardwood floor, that can be a catastrophic brain injury. And so they are legitimately playing with fire if they roll him out and let him play in the next game. And again, it could be a long shot, but it could be a catastrophic injury if he gets another blow to the head, not just from the injury itself, but from that fall into the hardwood from such a height.
Chris Nowinski is our guest. He's the founding CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation. He's an expert in this area. So, Chris, remind everybody, and even for Perloff and I, with football, it's you see the collision and then you see Tua wobbling, and it makes sense that would be a concussion 1-to-1. We saw the after effects with Anthony Davis, but I think some people say, he just got hit in the head. It didn't look like that, massive collision like we're used to seeing in football, but that doesn't matter, right?
Right. Let's remember, there's no helmet here, right? So, and we're talking about really big, really strong guys. A short little elbow can easily concuss you, right? So the part that I think is confusing for people is that Anthony's probably in pain when he gets elbowed in the head, right? And so you don't have that same pain when you're wearing a football helmet. And so at what point does the pain, the grab your head in pain stop? And you start to think, this is more than that. And I think it's that point that, if you grab your head in pain, you pop up, you rub it, and then you keep going. It's like a 5-second thing. That's the pain. When it starts to go on for 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds, it's no longer pain, right? It's not plausible that he's sitting on the bench because he has an owie on his skin. It's because, again, and he gave obvious signs on the bench, he couldn't see straight. He had visual disturbances. And so then when you layer in this whole idea that somebody didn't feel comfortable with him walking to the locker room, again, people need to trust their gut. If this was your kid, like a concussion every time and never put them back in, and don't make sure they go to a doctor, and they're not going to be put at risk again for at least another week or two.
We're talking to Chris Nowinski, founder, CEO of Concussions LF. Chris, hey, you mentioned earlier that CTE is not common in basketball players, or at least that we know of. What if someone said, okay, well, if there's not necessarily a concern about CTE, maybe we don't need to make as big a deal of this?
Well, so with Tua, we made a big deal of it. It was never about CT, right? CT is caused by the accumulation of hundreds of thousands of blows to the head. It's a matter of how many you get hit, and how hard you get hit. In basketball, you're just getting hit far fewer times than football players, and that's why we don't see a lot of CT, although it's certainly possible. But with concussions, what you're most worried about is some people die every year from second impact syndrome, so that a second blow to the head, not even a concussion, can cause rapid swelling of the brain that in 50% of people causes death. It usually causes permanent symptoms. Then there's the idea that a second concussion can be life-altering or career-altering. Right? Could two concussions in a week can cause you to be for me it was 15 years of headaches. Right? Like for some people, it's new mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, all sorts of things. So I think part of the reason they feel comfortable rolling the dice is they're like, well, he's probably not going to die, and if he has long-term symptoms, that's his choice to play through it. And even if that's true, like one of the big problems we have here is they're still misleading the public, right? This is a public health issue. Sports are for kids. Kids play sports. We all model our behavior off of what the pros do. And so if we're not calling an obvious concussion a concussion, we are putting kids at risk because their coaches and their dads and their moms are going to have to make those same decisions off that same evidence. And if they follow the Lakers' line of thinking here, I think they're going to end up with the wrong conclusion, and that's going to put kids at risk.
Chris, if you were in charge of the Lakers, would you not have Anthony Davis play in Game 6?
Yeah, I mean, as a humanitarian, I would say, yeah. I don't think you want to risk someone's mental health and their life over a game. I mean, it's hard, right? It's the playoffs, it's the NBA, but I would say I wouldn't want to play him, but I think it's even more important just not to lie to people. If they said, look, you had a concussion, it was really mild, and he was cleared by the best doctor in the world, and he's doing it because he's a pro, and he acknowledges the risks he's taking, that's a different argument. But they're not doing that.
Chris, we have about a minute left. Real quick on the Tua front. There's some pictures. Tua put on a lot of muscle this offseason. Does that make him any safer from concussions?
There's certainly no evidence to suggest that. And more recent studies on thicker necks show that doesn't really have a big outcome when it comes to concussions. So I don't know. I mean, some of the strongest guys in football still get concussions. I hope, but considering his mechanism of falling backwards and having his head slam, hopefully being stronger might reduce the risk of some of that. So, I hopefully it's helpful, but I don't think we have science to say so.
And what would be the impact if Tua got another concussion, say early in the season?
Yeah, I worry. I mean, I think the biggest impact is that people would lose confidence in him, and that they wouldn't. No one would be willing to bet on him being the franchise quarterback anymore. And again, that was not his fault. And but once you start getting concussions, you can get more. Some people just keep getting them. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Chris, can't tell you how much we appreciate this. You're an expert in this field, so we always love talking with you. You enlighten us every time we get to talk. Chris Nowinski is the founding CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation. He's doing excellent work. Chris, thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you.
Appreciate it so much.